Tonight, how do your feelings about economic inequality impact your sense of happiness? NewsHour economics correspondent Paul Salmon finds out. It's part of his regular reporting on making sense of financial news.
How happy are you? Scale of 1 to 4. 1, not at all happy. 4, very happy.
I'm a 4.
A 4?
I'm very happy.
Laurie Sanders works at the conservative Washington think tank, the American Enterprise Institute. A few blocks away, Occupy D.C.er Eric is on the more liberal end of the spectrum.
What number would you give yourself? 1. Are you unhappy, do you think, because of the inequality, economic inequality in this country?
Well, yeah.
Study after study, it turns out, finds conservatives happier than liberals. Yale social psychologist Jaime Napier has a theory as to why.
Economic inequality really does affect people's subjective well-being.
Napier's work has convinced her conservatives are happier than liberals because they think there's equality of opportunity in America.
One of the biggest correlates with happiness in our surveys was the belief in meritocracy, which is a belief that anybody who works hard can make it. That was the biggest predictor of happiness. That was also one of the biggest predictors of political ideology. So the conservatives were much higher on these meritocratic beliefs than liberals were.
Liberals like the folks we found at Occupy D.C., who don't think the opportunities out there are equal these days. Their message is clear. The system is not fair.
Everybody here at this Occupy movement is here because they've had enough and they're angry, and chances are, people here are very unhappy with the way that our society works.
I believe that things should be equal, or people should have more of an opportunity to become closer to the 1%, because right now it's like the 1% is the 1%, the 99 is the 99, and we kind of don't stand a chance.
The conservative AEI staffers, on the other hand, think we do.
How many of you, on average, think Americans get what they deserve economically?
Reza John, who grew up in Pakistan, believed in Horatio algorithm for all, sort of.
I would say not everybody is able to pull off those kinds of success stories. But in this country, more than any other, for the work you do, you are able to better yourself.
That's true no matter who you are, said Jesse Blumenthal.
The pull yourself up by your bootstraps notion works here much more than really anywhere else in the world.
Now, optimism alone does not determine contentment. Religion boosts happiness. So does marriage. But Napier's research accounted for that.
We adjusted for education, for income, for marital status, religion, people who lived urban versus rural, all kinds of things. So, on average, just your ideology alone is an independent predictor of your subjective well-being.
It is true that conservatives tend to be less concerned about income inequality.
Arthur Brooks, president of AEI and the author of Gross National Happiness, agrees with Napier about the conservative happiness edge.
Conservatives think that fairness is one in which outcomes are based on merit, and people start with more or less equal opportunities, or at least we're working for equal opportunities. If you believe those things and you see that some person makes more than others, or the top 1% is breaking away than the bottom 99%, that's not going to affect your happiness very much at all.
But with the average wage flatlined, and more than 28 million Americans still jobless or underemployed, do merit and hard work really drive success these days?
They don't care.
The late comedian George Carlin's viral video answer has become a liberal credo.
The owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Napier says American economic malaise of the past few decades disheartened everyone, but liberals most of all.
So everybody was decreasing in happiness as there was more inequality, but liberals to a significantly greater extent than conservatives. And in 1974, the difference between liberals and conservatives on happiness was not statistically significant. It was basically, ideology did not predict happiness in 1974.
And today it does?
And today it definitely does.
How much happier are conservatives than liberals on average?
It's about a half a point on a 1 to 4 scale.
Now, it's not as if liberals are clinically depressed. Indeed, besides unhappy Eric, the liberals at Occupy D.C., a protest movement after all, were a reasonably cheery lot.
How happy are you on a scale of 1 to 4? 1, not at all happy. 4, very happy.
I'd probably have to say 3. I would say definitely 3+.
And there were even a few 4s. Ellie, who declined to give her last name, rated herself a 2.5 on the happiness scale.
Is the economic inequality and growing economic inequality in this country something that has personally, emotionally disturbed you?
Absolutely. No questions.
Alan Ball's 3+ came despite his concerns about inequality.
The reconciliation of inequality is very difficult to do, especially with the system that we have right now. But I've tried to get beyond that because I don't want external things to affect my well-being. There's a temple of love right over there that we're going to put an altar in, and we're going to set up a sacred space where people can go in to have peace, to meditate.
A temple a tad less inviting than the American Enterprise Institute, where, if not ecstatic, neither was any one of them below a 3.
I'm about 3.5, I would say.
I'd probably call it somewhere around a 3.5.
It's probably somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4.
Alex Della Rochetta was a 3.5. Laurie Sanders, you may remember, a full 4. Okay, a ludicrously small sample. But on average, our conservatives scored about half a point happier on the 1 to 4 scale than the liberals at Occupy D.C. And that's the very same half-point advantage found in the study's Jaime Napier cites. No surprise to occupier Craig Hudson.
It's pretty obvious that conservatives represent the interests of the rich, I mean, for the most part. So people with money generally are happier and generally like to say, well, you know, I got to where I am because I worked hard, or, you know, parents, whatever, and, you know, anybody else, well, they must not have worked hard enough.
If everyone was a conservative, we'd all be a lot happier, I guess, right?
Probably. But not, says Arthur Brooks, because they are wealthier.
It's not true that conservatives are richer than liberals. Liberals are actually richer than conservatives. The reason that conservatives tend to be less concerned with income inequality is not because that they're ignorant. It's not because they're calloused. It's not because they have less of a sense of morality. It has to do with the fact that they see the world differently.
See it as a world of just desserts. AEI staffer Stuart James.
I hate the idea of sitting around waiting for someone else to come and, you know, sweep you off your feet and save you from student loan debt or an underwater mortgage or whatever it is. You get what you put into something. If you're going to sit around and wait for someone to do it for you, you're going to be miserable because it ain't going to happen.
Folks at AEI think their vision of hard work and just desserts would, if applied, make everyone better off and even more equal.
The inequalities do make me unhappy. I just think that I can contribute to making that better.
Meanwhile, back among the so-called 99%, the hope is that a radical change movement will finally address the inequities of our era. And how does that make them feel?
I am much happier here than I have ever been in Washington, D.C.
When you do band together and create something, it's very exciting and a very pleasurable experience.
But where's the damn tea?
Thinking you're doing something about economic inequality, in other words, seems to make everyone happier, at least for the moment.